Hi, this is Mrs. Erickson, and this is a PowerPoint slide that is talking about the beginning part of digestion. This would be Chapter 2, Section 3 in your textbook, and you can follow along in the textbook if you would like. So, digestion has to do with breaking down food in the human body. We have different organs that are going to be involved in the digestion process. You have your salivary glands that are found in the mouth. You have your esophagus. The food goes down into the stomach. Food doesn't touch the pancreas, but it is part of the digestive process. The leftover products of food, of course, are eliminated through the anus. You have the large intestine that we're going to talk about, small intestine. Gallbladder, food doesn't go to either, but it is part of the digestive process, and same with the liver. And then the pharynx, you guys probably know that as the throat. So the pharynx is the throat. Beginning digestion, we're just going to talk about from the mouth to the stomach. So that's what this PowerPoint is going to be on. There's two types of digestions that occur in the human body. One's called chemical digestion and one is called mechanical. Chemical, of course, is digestion of the food using chemicals that our body produces. Mechanical is moving the food to digest it, which is what mechanical means. So we'll talk about those two as we go through this presentation. Digestion begins in the mouth. You have mechanical digestion in the mouth because the teeth are physically breaking down the food, moving it around. So chewing is considered a mechanical digestion. So digestion starts right away the minute you start to chew it. But we also have chemical digestion in the mouth, and that is chemicals that come from your saliva. You have several salivary glands in your mouth, and of course, when you think of something really good and delicious to eat, your mouth will sometimes start to water. That is the saliva coming from the salivary glands that is getting ready to break down the food. So do a little experiment. Take a soda cracker, put it in your mouth, and don't chew it. Just let it sit there for 1 minute. Then take it out and look at the edges. Digestion, chemical digestion, has already started to break down that cracker. You'll see that it's kind of smooth and milky looking. That's the enzymes in your salivary glands that begin to break down starches. Okay, so try that experiment. Okay, so you have mechanically and chemically broken down the food in your mouth. Next stop is the esophagus. Food goes from the mouth into the pharynx and down into this long muscular tube called the esophagus. The esophagus connects the mouth to the stomach. Now when you swallow, if you ever had a friend make you laugh when you're swallowing water or something and you cough and cough and cough, that's because when you were laughing, your epiglottis didn't cover your trachea good enough and you got a little bit of that water in your lungs. Well, your lungs doesn't want any water or food in it, so you start to cough to get it up. So the epiglottis is a little flap way down here in your pharynx. You can't see it if you look in your throat, but it's down there. When you swallow, it closes over the pharynx, over the trachea, so that the food will go down the esophagus and not down this tube here, the trachea, into your lungs. So that's what the epiglottis does, closes over the trachea, prevents food from going down into the lungs. Food is moved through the esophagus with involuntary muscle, so it's a smooth muscle, and they give it a name. It's called peristalsis. So peristalsis is an involuntary muscle contraction that moves food through the entire digestive system, and that begins in the esophagus. So say the word peristalsis. It's smooth muscle, and of course if it's smooth muscle, it's involuntary. You don't control it, it just happens. So from the mouth through the esophagus, the food lands in the stomach. The stomach is kind of a J-shaped organ. What happens here is mostly mechanical. digestion because the stomach is a muscle. So I have this picture here of a real stomach, and you can see how it's real muscular looking. It's not smooth, it's muscular. That's because the stomach squishes the food and moves the food around. There's also some chemical digestion that takes place here too. We'll talk about that later, but things like pepsin and hydrochloric acid that help to also break down the food. So you have both chemical and mechanical, but mostly mechanical. It'll take a few hours for the stomach to complete mechanical digestion. So your lunch or your breakfast or whatever will stay in your stomach for a couple of hours, depending on what you ate. Protein takes longer to break down, for instance, than carbohydrates. So I mentioned a little bit of chemical digestion in your stomach. There's a chemical called pepsin in your stomach. Now, if you've ever heard of advertisements saying, take Pepsid AC if you have stomach problems, or Pepto-Bismol. Well, they get their name because of the chemical in your stomach called pepsin. Pepsin helps break down proteins. So you can remember that, PP. Pepsin breaks down proteins. And then there's a nasty thing in your stomach called hydrochloric acid. It's a very strong acid found only in your stomach, and it helps the pepsin break down protein, because protein is harder to break apart than carbs. So you've got hydrochloric acid and pepsin breaking down protein. Hydrochloric acid can also kill bacteria that could be on your food. Now, of course, some of that doesn't always get by the hydrochloric acid, and people do get food poisoning. But sometimes, if it's not real bad, your stomach acids will take care of some of that bacteria. And that's the end of this presentation on beginning digestion. So we stopped with the food in the stomach. Now you can go ahead and open up your binders and do pages 33 and 34 in your binder.